Have antiphospholipid syndrome. While taking, you may bruise more easily or take longer for bleeding to stop. A spinal injection while on Eliquis increases risk of blood clots, which may cause paralysis, the inability to move. Get medical help right away for unexpected bleeding or unusual bruising, or if you have tingling, numbness, or muscle weakness. It may increase your bleeding risk if you take medicines, such as aspirin products, NSAIDs, SSRIs, SNRIs, and blood thinners. Tell your doctor about all planned medical or dental procedures. Learn more at Eliquis.com or call 1-855-ELIQUIS.
I never chose to become a gambling addict, but what I did choose was to get help from a professional counselor. Admitting I was powerless to solve my problem, that opened the doors. I thought I was beyond repair until I called 1-800-GAMBLER and was provided life-changing resources and referrals at zero cost to me.
For no-cost gambling addiction counseling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text SUPPORT to 53342. Brought to you by the California Department of Public Health. It's good.
You just heard the sound of clean. Cook tonight and leave the dishes for finish. If we can't clean them, the meal is on us. For additional details and terms and conditions, go to finish24hourchallenge.com.
What are all these people doing?
People play golf. Oh, that's exciting, playing golf.
Did you know anybody at 30 who had any concept of what they were doing when they were 60? Jennifer has talked to me about how nice it will be to live in a retirement community and maybe play golf. And she wants to ride the little golf cart around.
She's already plotting her 60s. John and Ken.
Everybody I knew at 30 hadn't even figured out what they were doing in their 30s.
Live 1 to 4 p.m. on KFI.
And on demand anytime on the iHeartRadio app.
Bet you got it all planned right. Never think to worry, never even feel a fright. Single sleeps alone, and I know you don't really mind.
Jerry and Shannon, KFI AM 640 live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. More rain coming into Southern California. Probably, it is already raining in Northern California, but it probably won't start here until after 10, maybe even after midnight. Tomorrow morning's commute should be pretty wet, so be careful.
Speaking of Northern California, a series of small earthquakes this morning up in South San Francisco area. There's a 3.5 at 6:01, followed by a pair of 2.6 aftershocks at 6:03 and 6:04.
Well, we know a little bit about who it was that was testifying yesterday in Manhattan, a former head of the National Enquirer, a guy named David Pecker. The grand jury had reconvened to hear from another witness in the case of hush money payments made to Stormy Daniels. There are new reports that the grand jury did not vote yesterday on whether to indict the former president, but they are expected to reconvene tomorrow. Pecker was photographed by DailyMail.com leaning over in the backseat of the car as he left the courthouse, even though he was trying to hide his identity. He was involved in this whole controversy surrounding the election when he bought exclusive rights to stories that might have been damaging to Trump's campaign in 2016. The assumption being that they were then going to be spiked; they were not going to be run.
Well, the shooter yesterday that attacked the Covenant School there in Nashville was a transgender person. She was born Audrey, and she went by the name Aiden recently.
Yeah, and the chief, John Drake, chief of the Metro Nashville Police Department, had used the word resentment, that there may have been resentment that was part of the motivation for all of this. And he explained it earlier today when he was on with CBS.
What detectives have said so far is there's possibly some resentment for having to go to that school. There's a connection with that family. Right now, I can't go deeply into that but because it's unconfirmed. But that's really where that came from.
He also described what we now know is being termed the manifesto.
We have a manifesto. We have a booklet that shows exactly what she had planned to do. We have maps that showed the entry point into the school, the weapons that was going to be used, the clothing that she was going to wear. She had drawn it up almost like a cartoon character. It was exactly what she had on during this incident.
So the other thing about this is they obviously knew where she lived. They talked to her parents, but that version of it, that angle of it, prompted some fear out of them because they said they found the potential that there may have been other targets that she was working on.
We've talked to the father and the mother. They lived on Brightwood Avenue. We went to that residence, interviewed them, searched the home. We found 2 more weapons there, and I believe some more maps pertaining to maybe some thinking about some other incidents. We strongly believe there was going to be some other targets, including maybe family members, and one of the malls here in Nashville.
There was a detailed map of the school the shooter had, that the shooter had conducted surveillance prior to yesterday. It was 10:13 when she made entrance into the school, armed 2 assault rifles and a handgun, shot out the glass of the doors to get inside. 15 minutes before that entry point, she texted a former middle school basketball teammate of hers. Odd, again, middle school.
Well,
17 years ago.
when asked about it, she actually had an interesting response. So I'll let her explain it here in a minute. But these, just before 10 a.m., this message went from the shooter to a woman named Averiana Patton.
What a beautiful name.
And the shooter wrote, so basically that post I made on here about you, that was basically a suicide note. I'm planning to die today. This is not a joke, all caps. You'll probably hear about me on the news after I die. This is my last goodbye. I love you. See you again in another life.
And then she signed it Audrey, and then in parentheses, Aiden.
So Averiana writes back, Audrey, you have so much more life to live. I pray God keeps you and covers you.
She writes back, I know, but I don't want to live. I'm so sorry. I'm not trying to upset you or get attention. I just need to die. I wanted to tell you first because you're the most beautiful person I've ever seen and known all my life.
But she went on to write, my family doesn't know what I'm about to do. One day this will make more sense. I've left more than enough evidence behind, but something bad is about to happen.
Now, it will never make sense.
So I was at home. I received the Instagram DM, and when I initially saw it, I'm like, I'm still working. I'm still like not really, understanding what's happening right now. And so I had screenshotted the message to my dad, and I was like, "This don't seem right. Should I say something?" And he immediately responded, "Yes." And so I called him and I was like, who do I call? Like, what do I do? And then he was like, start with the suicide prevention line. So
Averiana Patton did call a suicide prevention hotline and talked to them and said, what do I do? And they said, well, we can't do anything. We can't reach out to this person. They have to call us. You might call local law enforcement, which is what Averiana did. But it would have been right around the same time that the shooting started. By the time she was able to talk to somebody at the suicide prevention hotline, it would have been about 10:15 o'clock. And then she was finally on with local police saying, I have a friend. I mean, clearly at that point, she has no idea, would have no idea that there was any connection. And a dispatcher at the same time would probably not have any idea either that this was going down or that the two were connected. She said it took several hours before she was finally able to reconnect and face-to-face meet someone from from the Nashville Police Department to turn over those messages. Now, there's a lot of people who I already know have started criticizing that. Like, why didn't Nashville Police immediately go to Averiana Patton and try to find... Listen, that's what we saw yesterday was an amazing show of force. In every Nashville police officer had their car pointed directly towards that school.
Yeah.
The idea that somebody was calling in with a vague and unusual
people write
suicide
this stuff on
DM,
social media all the time.
there's no way that they would have had the ability to put that together unless or until they were able to identify who she was and know that she had posted this on social media.
So what do we know about the shooter? What more do we know? A LinkedIn profile, personal website, describe her as a graphic designer who creates logos for businesses. She graduated from Nassau College of Art with a degree in illustration and graphic design last year. Again, it's just odd that at 28 years old, she would seek vengeance for whatever resentment that the chief was alluding to.
Which raises the question, how important is it to see what's in that manifesto?
Well, and I also want to know if there are pills connected to her transition, if there's a hormone issue. I don't know what kind of pills one takes, but I would imagine they screw with your hormones quite a bit.
And we don't even know if she was doing that.
We don't
We
know.
don't know if she was that far along, or if she just wanted to live with a male identity.
The mother of her appeared to be a gun control activist who once urged friends on Facebook to sign a petition calling for keeping firearms out of schools. Her name's Norma. She wrote in March of 2018, "So important. Keep guns out of school." It appeared to be from the Sandy Hook Promise Foundation.
Well, the irony of that cannot be overstated.
Well, part of that is pissing off mom. This is an F you to mom. And how does she have the gut? She lived with the parents. And that's quite a lot of firepower for someone whose mother is a gun control activist.
Well, at the age of 28, I mean, it's not like...
Oh, that's true.
Mom's not going to be able to control that.
Right.
I mean, they may have had arguments about it, but it sounds like the weapons that she used were legally purchased.
Right.
They are completely legal weapons in the state of Tennessee, it sounds like. So...
It sounds like mom was quite a religious person as well. She works at a Nashville-based church, the Village Chapel, as a coordinator. In 2019, she wrote, "Found this in a devotional book I loaned to Audrey," with a heart emoji at the end of the sentence. Photo that shows "I love God" written on the page. So mom's anti-gun, pro-God. She's got a transgender daughter who apparently is not in line with those beliefs. And it feels like there was some sort of resentment going back to middle school. Not high school, where most resentments happen. Right. Middle school. Anyway, we know more about the victims, too, and who was taken, and we will talk about that when we come back.
Gary and Shannon will continue. Jennifer Jones-Lee is live in the KFI 24-hour newsroom.
Well, according to the Cato Institute, it found that yesterday's shooting at Covenant Presbyterian in Nashville is unusual. It says it found around 94% of the school shooting incidents in the U.S. between 2000 and 2018 happened at public school buildings. Just 6% happened at private buildings. Now, as you guys were talking about, a friend of the shooter in Nashville says she got a message on Instagram just before the attack saying the shooter was planning to die and that she would probably hear about her on the news. The woman says she tried to comfort and encourage her friend and reached out to a suicide prevention helpline. She says she also called police and was told to call a non-emergency number. She says she was on hold with that for nearly 7 minutes before she finally spoke with someone who said an officer would be sent to her home. She says an officer didn't arrive until 3:30 in the afternoon. A fence installed around Echo Park Lake when homeless camps were cleared out has been dismantled.
The fence was put in after the city moved about 200 homeless people out of the park. Several people went to the park yesterday to protest the fence's removal. This woman says the fence has helped keep the park safe. She says she saw quite a bit of crime before the fence was installed 2 years ago.
I witnessed drug dealing. I witnessed gunshots.
Councilman Hugo Soto Martinez says he won't allow the park to go back to the way it was. He says service providers and outreach workers will be at the park every day. In Echo Park, Blake Trolley, KFI News.
A fire at an immigration detention center in northern Mexico has killed at least 39 people. Mexico's president says the event was one of the deadliest at an immigration lockup in the country. It was caused by migrants fearing deportation who set mattresses on fire.
A spokesperson for the National Security Council says the tragic loss of life in Ciudad Juarez is, quote, heartbreaking, and the U.S. has been in touch with Mexican officials and stands ready to provide any support needed.
ABC's Karen Travers says the center is an area across the border from El Paso. 68 men from Central and South America had been housed in the facility at the time of the fire. The nation's top banking regulator says the Federal Reserve's bank supervisors had informed management at Silicon Valley Bank as early as 2021 of risks stemming from its unusual business model. Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank's failures earlier this month were the second and third largest bank collapses in U.S. history.
These two institutions were allowed to fail. Shareholders lost their investment. Unsecured creditors took losses. The boards and the most senior executives were removed.
The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation's Martin Gruenberg says the failures demonstrate the implications that banks' assets over $100 billion can have when it comes to financial stability. Police in Portugal have shot and killed a man who fatally stabbed 2 women at a Muslim center in Lisbon. The women were Portuguese staff members at the center. Cops say they ordered the attacker to surrender, but he advanced toward them and was neutralized. He died at the hospital. And highway safety regulators in the U.S. have opened another investigation into problems with Teslas. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration says it has 2 complaints from Tesla owners that the front seat belts weren't sufficiently connected at the factory. The investigation covers about 50,000 Model X SUVs from 2022 to 2023. The agency is also investigating complaints about problems with Tesla's automated driving system that date back to 2020. SoCal weather from KFI. We've got a gray day later. Temperatures will be in the upper 50s to low to mid 60s. Then the rain's going to start overnight into tomorrow. Heavy at times Wednesday and Thursday, up to 2 inches in some spots. Looks like our snow level will stay above 3,500 feet. Let's get a look at your drive with EKFI in the sky in the 10.
If you're headed westbound on the 10 and you want to make the transition to the southbound side of the 5, well, they have that transition road closed now for a Caltrans work zone and starting to see some traffic backing up into Monterey Park on that westbound 10. It's also slow northbound side of the 5 from before the 710 as you make your way into the East LA interchange. Still a full freeway closure in Pomona, the 71 northbound from Mission Boulevard up to Holt Avenue, all lanes closed. They're still doing repairs on that freeway. Potholes and sinkholes and other sorts of things opening up there that they want to cover up and get fixed before the rain comes, so they're working hard on that. Also in Griffith Park, we've got a big problem on the 134 westbound at the 5. It's a crash in the carpool and left lanes. Traffic just jammed up solid out of Glendale from the 2 freeway. KFI in the sky helps get you there faster. I'm Will Kohlschreiber.
Ronald Reagan took this country from the depths of inflation in the 1970s to economic prosperity in just a few years' time. He knows a thing or two about saving a country in distress. And now you can get your hands on a free Ronald Reagan half-ounce silver coin. All qualified callers who call Goldco, the #1 rated precious metals company, this week will get a free Ronald Reagan half-ounce silver coin. Call 855-823-GOLD and get yours free while supplies last. That's 855-823-GOLD. 855-823-GOLD.
It's no secret that when someone stinks, it's all you remember about them.
Oh, is that you?
Oh, no. Not now.
Don't worry. I got you. Try this.
And it's by Secret?
Yeah, Secret aluminum-free deodorant. It gets rid of those stinky PU pits instead of covering them up. Just wipe and you're fresh all day. Secret actually works, even aluminum-free.
Don't let be what people remember. Get your Secret in sticks or sprays. Madame Dupree, tell me what my future holds.
I see good fortune if you switch to T-Mobile.
Wait, do you also work for T-Mobile?
Well,
the new Samsung Galaxy S23 Plus is here at T-Mobile. Free on our Max plan when you switch. No trade-in required. With eligible for $800 via 24-month bill credits and $200 virtual prepaid card rebate plus tax for well-qualified buyers. Contact us before canceling service to continue remaining bill credits or credit stop and balance on required finance agreements due. Register prepaid cards for 30 days or 8 weeks. Details at T-Mobile.com.
In this week's Marketers Report, Chris Brandt, Chief Marketing Officer at Chipotle Mexican Grill, weighs in on the power of audio.
We've used audio to reinforce what we're showing on TV, what we're showing in other digital channels. When your priority is driving reach, boy, everybody seems to listen to the radio.
As the #1 audio company, iHeartMedia gives marketers access to the audiences, conversations, trusted influencers, insights, and data you need to grow. Go to iHeartResults.com for more.
The free iHeartRadio app is #1 for music, radio, and podcasts, all in one. Discover a new podcast from our library of over 350,000 titles. Here's an iHeartRadio podcast preview.
When you Google search the word culpable, here's what it comes back with from the dictionary. Culpable. Adjective. The definition, deserving blame.
You got 2 people that were there, and neither one of them had the same story. You know, if the man killed himself, that should have been the story between both of them. But when you get 2 stories, somebody's lying.
And when used in a sentence, sometimes you're just as culpable when you watch something as when you actually participate.
My theory
theory is that there was a third person there.
But in some cases, like this one I learned about in Meridian, Mississippi,